Hey, what's up y'all, and of course welcome to another alternative factuals video. So this video is another weekly one, but this week I'm going to talk about Blade. So it's not so much going to be attached to a comic book. Next week I'm going to be covering a different comic book. I'll kind of let you know during the week as the week goes on, so that way you can kind of know which one it is. But I want to talk about the top 3 villains I guess we can expect going forward in the MCU when it comes to Blade. So in order to keep up with news like this and videos like this, please be sure to like, share, and of course subscribe. Leave your comments down below. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what you're feeling. And of course, without further and or possible ado, let's kind of just dive into things. So on a random note, I'm going to go see Black Widow, I think, what was it, either Thursday or Friday? So we'll talk about that when I get back. Probably on either Saturday. Maybe I'll do a live stream, play a game, chat about it, whatever it is. I'll figure out some way to have a communication with you guys about the Black Widow movie. But besides that, let's talk about Blade. So Blade is a very interesting character. He's a daywalker who is half human, half vampire, with all the strengths and none of the weaknesses of vampires, and does have a very interesting healing factor. But this video is not so much about his power specifically, because I did kind of go over this already in another video that you can check out on my channel back when the algorithm actually loved me. But also we're going to talk about a little bit about the top 3 villains you can expect to see, or the most important villains that I think Blade has to face when it comes to his MCU debut. So here we are. We have number 1, in my opinion, is Dracula. Now we already know Dracula is an absurdly powerful character. It's one of Blade's most powerful villains because, one, he's been a really popular person in pop culture in general when it comes to vampires, period, because we did have that Vampire Dracula movie that came out a few years ago, I think 2016 or something like that. I kind of liked it, but it wasn't like super duper good. But in general, Dracula is a very popular character, and he's a very powerful character, able to, manipulate hundreds and droves of vampires, able to manipulate the weather, able to access different forms of magic. He himself is deemed, I guess, the father of vampires, and very similar to Lilith, who in the Marvel universe is also someone who has interactions with vampires in a magical sense. But he has faced a slew of heroes and actually has still managed to survive. So we have Dracula. He is very much important because I think when it comes to his character, Blade is going to realize that, there not only are there vampires out there, but there's going to be powerful vampires like Dracula, who vampires seem to operate in groups and sections and cliques, and I would say gangs low-key, but they kind of function as groups under Dracula in a lot of cases, depending on what region of the world you're coming from. So I think he's extremely important, and I think that's something that a lot of people should definitely be on the lookout for when it comes to Blade. All right, number 2 is Varney. Now, I went over this in the Blade video as well, so it's kind of seeming like, I'm kind of pulling from my own video, which sometimes I do. But I want y'all to know Varney is extremely powerful. He is the original vampire. He was actually an ancient Atlantean sorcerer who turned himself into a vampire as the city of Atlantis was actually sinking. So this allowed him to survive the interaction with the sinking and all that stuff and continue to survive on the surface. However, he actually used the Darkhold to make his transformation. And this is why I think not only is he like the most powerful and most important, but simply he's the most relevant villain when it comes to Blade. Now, we already know the Darkhold is something that was mentioned in WandaVision. WandaVision mentioned how the Darkhold is basically a book of extremely dark and powerful spells that have been used for hundreds and thousands of years. And at the end of the series, and I'm going to say spoiler for a show that's kind of been over already for a few months, at the end of the series, we see that the Scarlet Witch is actually reading the Darkhold, learning how to resurrect not only her kids, I guess, but I'm assuming trying to get the true Vision back, even though at the end of the series, we do see that Vision is kind of back-ish, I guess, but they're kind of following the comic books. I'm not diving into Vision, but ultimately, he's the most relevant. We can find out that because of the Darkhold is, I guess, relevant in the MCU, Varney was one of the first people to use its magic to transform himself into a being of darkness, into someone who needs to drink and sustain blood and plasma and all that stuff in order to sustain himself and being the original vampire. So he's relevant actually to WandaVision, and would be relevant if he was introduced in Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness and or another, WandaVision series, season, or if in another movie or whatever like that. So he's really important. And last but definitely not least by any means is Deacon Frost. Now, we seen the original Blade way back with Wesley Snipes. Deacon Frost was important. Now, they did hint at the fact that yes, he did kill his, not hint at the fact, they confirmed it actually, I said hint at, but they confirmed Deacon Frost was responsible for not only turning his mother in the live series, not series, but the live movie, but ultimately he is someone who was trying to challenge Dracula himself. Now, he's one of his biggest foes simply because Deacon Frost in the comic books was the one who killed his mother, basically the one who bit him, or bit her mom, and then bit his mom, and then ultimately which caused his transformation to a half human, half kind of vampire hybrid. So he's responsible for that. Deacon Frost is the one responsible for that, and Blade went after him hard body. But ultimately, he himself was not bitten by a vampire. He actually was a scientist who just simply injected himself with vampire blood and became a vampire. So he didn't really gain any of the like subservience issues that some vampires would get when they get bitten directly by somebody else. So they didn't have like this sire mentality. So because he did it in a more scientific way, but dealing with something that was very much supernatural, he still had very much control over himself, but he gained the ability to fully control any vampire he himself made. So he was still able to sire other vampires and had extra abilities because of the way he went about the whole vampiric injection. But they were constantly battling for a very long time, and then Deacon Frost wanted to overthrow Dracula, probably still does, because Deacon Frost sees it as an opportunity to gain not only more for his knowledge, but just being able to sire more vampires, being able to control more vampires. And Blade has always made it his mission to go after Deacon Frost, even if it meant there's a possibility he could lose his life in some situations due to some of the scenarios that played out in the comic books. So let me know what you think in the comments down between, like, do you think if this is, you know, the top 3 most powerful and most important villains Blade should be, you know, kind of dealing with? Obviously there's other characters you can say he has to be dealing with, much like Lilith or Morbius, for example. You can definitely make an argument for a lot of this stuff for sure, but nonetheless I think we just need to worry about the top 3. That's the foundation of his character. There's a villain I'm actually really interested in, that's Vampire X, and he's just essentially just a prominent foe of Blade. Now, he was in the Ultimate Marvel Universe where he essentially was known as the most powerful of all the vampire hunters in you know, in the Ultimate Universe, and it was just basically he was under the leadership of Blade. But unfortunately, you know, he got turned and then tried to actually unite all the vampires under his rule. But that's the Ultimate Universe. They might take that route, maybe, we never know. But let me know what you think in the comments down below, and if you're new to the channel, please be sure to like, share, and of course subscribe. Leave your comments down below, and I hope to see you later on. Peace out.